Good morning, everyone. This is the weekly scheduling call, back on time on Friday. We welcome all the Geo fans, and I'm sure this call will attract a following over the next months that will grow rapidly based on our insane scheduling skills in the next 45 minutes. So also with tea, because it is cold and gray.
And I'm going to share my screen.
It's perfect scheduling weather, really, right? It's like...
Cozy inside, tucked up with the boards.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Can you see the build board on my screen?
Yes.
Okay. As usual, I should have put this on a new window first because I have too many tabs.
That's actually because I had to fly. I had to shut down my laptop.
Yeah.
And that was a good opportunity to start some new Chrome windows and close all my tabs.
Okay. In the closed column today, we have 4, which is still pretty good considering we did this last on Monday. So number 1, refactor the checksum code. This was a community contribution that Brian put forward, which was wonderful. I'm very happy that this is in. I'm going to take active and in view off because that's done.
Oh, that was really nice to see.
Oh, this is good to see. Okay, repos without a recent commit are flagged as invalid. So this was closed because we're not able to reproduce with what they've opened on the same version. Feel free to reopen if needed. Okay, so unfortunately we didn't get to the bottom of the problem, but we have gotten to a point that we can't go any further. So we'll get rid of the issues that we don't need.
I think that's good. I mean, we can always reopen this, but there's no point in keeping it around forever. It just gives an impression of something happening that is not real. So
yeah. Right, backport to fix the sync. I was so happy that this has been finished as well. And many thanks to Delivery, if they are listening, for doing this for us. Not ideal that we had to go through this process, but at least it was done. And there is an RCA that is completed. And I think the biggest learnings from the RCA are that we need to get this thing, we need to get Geo up in production.
Yes.
So we can make that part of the second half of this call.
And also there's follow-up work, I think, that we will contribute to, which is while we did it, there is no real process for doing it. So I think Marin has taken it upon him to create that process. And
yeah, and I'm working with him on that.
Yeah, and I
want to make sure that it is regimented, but also that sometimes Geo can be special, but I want to make sure that we're not so special that it's completely different just for us. We need to still fit in with what the actual process is, but I want to just make sure that they're considering that there is differences inside of the engineering departments.
Yeah. And I spoke with Marin as well, and I actually need to create an issue for this. He asked me to create an issue template for backporting, because I think even though there's a process, I think there should also be sort of an issue template for if you want something backported, this is the template that you need to fill out in order to actually follow this process.
So Marin is doing that at the same time. That's part. He's doing it as a separate MR, but there is one for that coming.
Very good.
And this was done with a merge request.
Can you go to the top again? This is
method undefined error. Sorry, this was only opened a day ago, so I hadn't seen this one yet.
Yeah, I have no idea what this is.
But this is an interesting point that Tone raised. Why is it trying to do this if Geo is disabled?
Yeah, so I lack a little bit of context to this because I didn't have a chance to actually look at this.
It looks like a Geo event is trying to get created, even though Geo is disabled. So I don't know. I haven't gone into the merge request to look at what the fix is that has been put forward. But Tone's statement here is right.
Yeah.
Why were we trying to do this if it's disabled? So as Douglas is the person that he's asked of. I'm just saying to Douglas as well, if we need to fix this, please make an issue for it.
Okay, but this is actually closed because the merge request has been merged already.
It is, but the conversation can still continue there, even if it's closed. I mean,
yeah, no, that's
the
fine.
result of the conversation is just going to be to raise an issue or not. So, okay. Right, let me refresh the board. Okay, so in verification is this one, and the reason it's here is because of the release note.
I'll write that today. It's on my list. I didn't have the time to do it.
That's okay. I know that Valeri's been working on the documentation here. I saw that getting picked up and worked on. Put a unique constraint on the project ID. Ah, okay, but there was no unique constraint there. Okay. Interesting that that went through with the review, but that's fine. It's getting done. It's nothing to worry about, I don't think. This was blocked on performing the upgrade, which got halfway and then we ran out of arrows.
Yeah, let's say our GitLab instances are not as robust when parts of the configuration are missing. Is that a fair summary, Don?
Yeah, blame it on our cluster. Yeah, that's
exactly.
nice.
That sounds good. Okay. I was very sad that that call wasn't recorded, by the way. I really wanted to go back and see if I would have caught it, but alas.
It was recorded.
No, I don't think it was. When I joined, it wasn't being recorded. Am I wrong?
I saw the recording, so...
Oh, okay.
I might have stopped it just moments before you joined.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, no, it was at 14 minutes, right? It's not very long because I think you decided to retrieve your steps.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll go back and watch. Anyway, in the development column.
Oh, sorry. One thing just that came up on Contribute. I spoke with Camille, and for whatever reason this came up, and he said that people in the memory team may be interested in this MR as well, just in terms of seeing what is actually happening. And
which MR are you talking about?
The Create Geo Upgrade documentation. And just out of interest, so I shared it with them, and I shared it with Camille, because I think he realized that this is a rather involved sort of piece of documentation. So that was quite nice, because maybe he'll have a look, or people in his team will have a look, and maybe we'll catch something.
Okay. Right, in development, job artifacts, record to sync. So this... Great, okay, so Douglas has asked for some comment here, which is great.
And he also asked to share these queries with the customer. So I already put it in the support ticket and asked Eric to make sure that this gets across. I'm very impressed. Just looking at the statistics, it looks like the queries execute a few factors faster, like from timing out at 5 minutes to 6 seconds. So if this holds, right, I think this may work out. Obviously, this looks like magic to me. I don't understand anything, but I am really happy that this is being picked up. And also some feedback. There was a representative of the customer that is affected at commit, and I didn't get a chance to actually speak with that person directly, but I heard from Timo, who works with them, that they appreciate us being active in those issues and actually posting updates, because they can follow and they can see what is happening. So I think it's really nice.
Nice. Okay. Let's see what they come back with after running those. Okay, this is the upgrade that Ian is busy working on. So we're just leaving that there for information. We're not actually active on that.
Yeah, but this may need to be backported. So I may not do that because that's distribution's playground. I just asked because I got an inkling, because I think there's a lot of things that are changing. So I think the question is, like what will happen with this? once it is actually accepted and done. Just as
at least this is something that they're taking care of, so we can.
Yes. No, and I think they're definitely getting there. I think it may just be because essentially, upgrades fail in those versions. So we can discuss if warning messages are enough.
Okay. Right. This shard worker using a lot of RAM.
I didn't see any activity, and I suspect that this is because Douglas is working on the SQL stuff.
I think that might be so. I'm just quickly seeing on the Geo stand-up if this one's been referenced in a little while. Douglas has been working on the job artifacts one. Okay. I'm not really sure what to do about this one, if I must just leave it for a little while or have another ping.
I think maybe it's worthwhile just leaving it for a couple of days and see what happens, because or just ping Douglas and just ask if this is pushed behind because of the SQL work and if somebody else should support him.
I think I'll give it today and Monday, because if he's been busy on other things, then it makes sense why it hasn't been picked up yet. But if something else new gets picked up, then there's a question that why isn't it not this one? So, okay. Verification of design repositories. Valerie's on this one. There's nothing much to report.
I think the question here is, I think this kicked off quite a bit of discussion on this.
This is the one with the big discussion here.
Yeah, in the sort of verification framework kind of state. So what I would like to understand is, does it make sense to implement design repository verification right now? And is there a good way forward? Or, I haven't really dug into this, or is given what we know now, are we basically saying like, hey, all of these localized solutions, they're insufficient. What we should push forward for is a sort of a more standardized verification framework. And so I don't know what the state of that discussion is.
So I did try to pull this one into a more unified discussion, because there is a somewhat similar discussion happening about the replication a framework for replication as well. And the reason that I'm trying to pull them into one conversation is because I know that there are big technical differences, but I'm wondering if there is a similar method that can solve both of the problems using messaging.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to pull the conversation together just because I want to see if there's something more like from a different perspective that we can be looking here, rather than trying to solve the problem separately. It might be that actual fact they are so different and that we can keep them completely separate, and that's fine. But I just want to have the discussion there. But there is, since we're talking about this now, I'll bring it in now and we can come back to the in dev column. But the way that I've been thinking about what the team needs to be looking at is there's going to be this idea about working on these frameworks and making sure that it's easy to add new types for replication and for verification purposes. But I think that needs to happen alongside with the stuff that's getting ready to deploy on staging and dr.gitlab.com. And I'm trying to think about how we split the work that we have amongst those two specific projects. And if we actually say to people, can these people focus on this side, on looking at these adjustments to creating frameworks here, and can other people be dedicated onto getting this on staging, and can these people be dedicated onto getting it onto dr.gitlab.com? Whether they all have to happen in parallel is another question, but I think that having sets of people that are focused on these things might be helpful to get them moving forward.
I agree, and maybe we can talk about sort of capacity allocation in in general for sort of 12.5 and what we're going to do. But I do agree that it may make sense to have sort of a little bit more sort of dedicated focus for a couple of folks on an area, just to make sure that it actually moves forward, and that there is also it's easier to see you know, what is happening. But then again, I would hesitate to have more than 3 things going on in parallel, because then it gets really tricky, right? So I think that's maybe something we can sort of come back to at the end of the call, sort of with scheduling what's next, because I think some of those things are more important and more urgent than others. So I'm happy to drop some things for now, if we can focus on getting some other things through.
Okay, well, let's finish on this dev column and then we're on the scheduling portion. So I know in this issue that Mike has taken something out of scope. I saw a statement earlier in the stand-up channel that something had been taken out of scope here.
Yes, so I think he is not replacing an option anymore. I think he is introducing a new option.
Well, okay, some questions. It's probably better to avoid all of that in this iteration. Okay, leave GitLab SSH host alone. So this issue will only add the one setting.
Yes.
Okay, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think that makes sense. And I think he said that by doing this, it actually makes it a little bit more straightforward to implement, which makes me happy, because I have faith that we can get this into 12.4, and then I can write a nice release post.
Okay, because yeah, this is the last week of 12.4.
Yeah, on the 17th, which is Friday, I think everything should be done.
Okay.
And I need to be strict, because I have to enforce this across groups, so we can't make any exceptions for ourselves.
Okay, this is the upgrade, tones on that, and last one is showing the sync information. So Valeria has picked this up, and I've asked him to also have a chat with Zach about what he needs to do for this.
Yes.
So that Zach understands what's in there and how to do the next one.
Yes. Where is Zach based, by the way?
USA.
USA. What part of the US?
In the middle, I think. My brain has switched off. It's near. Is it Missouri? It's
okay, but he's not in this time zone, so that's
no. No, I think he's in Central Time Zone. I think. Yeah. Okay. So I suppose it's over to you, Fabian.
Yep. Just close some things. Can you see the build board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see that.
So we still have a significant number of items in here that need to be picked up. Let's start at the front. So this is something that Tone proposed to minimize the steps to run an upgrade without post-deployment migrations. I really like that idea, and it fits pretty well with the other work we're doing in upgrades at the moment. So I think this should be picked up. So I'm happy with this being here. Then, and it's also, I think it's something that is small enough to actually move relatively quickly, hopefully. So it's nice. The refresh foreign tables on reconfigure. Yeah, I think this is part of our effort here to make the foreign data tables more robust.
And it's a P2 bug, so we should leave that.
It's a P2 bug, so I think this is something we should do. So I'm happy. And also, if we look at this, other than these two things, which may not happen in 12.4, I have to actually, I have to follow up on those. I think there's a lot of like good work being done here. So potentially this is something that can be sort of is releasable with 12.4, but I may hold up the release post until all of those things are done. Let's see how it goes. Then the Postgres upgrade. I think this is something we rescheduled to do the upgrade of the version first and then do Postgres. I think that's still fine, but I do this. So it needs to happen. I think upgrades are important. We should figure out how to do this. Handle design uploads on admin area. So I think this is something that Zach may pick up.
Yes, I've asked him to take a look here.
Cool.
This is sitting behind another ticket that he has, which is a documentation only change. The thing is, he needs to get his GDK running and Geo running in GCP to get through those ones. So this isn't, I don't think this is going to be picked up immediately, and I don't know if this is going to make it into 12.4.
Okay, then let's see what we, like where we get, because I would be hesitant to release this, as part of 12.4 if we have no nothing in the front end. I think that would be really confusing.
No, I think as well. I think the front end is the visual way of accessing all of this stuff, and I think it might be better to say that this is going with 12.5 and release all of that together.
Yeah.
I mean, we can release all of the other stuff. There's no screen for it yet.
Yeah, and I think that's fine, right? But I believe, like, if we think about sort of customer value, right, I think we should deliver the package and say that this is what actually will work or not work, even though we've shipped all of the little iterations.
Yeah.
So I'll bring this up with Josh, because I think this is a little bit of discussion in the product team. Right? I could reasonably put all of those little issues as merged into the release post, but I don't see any point in doing that, because I don't think that has any value for our customers.
No, I would be hesitant to put it in the release post as well, because this is where they get the value.
Exactly.
And we're still operating in an iterative way, so that it's not one major huge thing that suddenly arrives on the system.
Yeah. But I think it's my job to also communicate that we didn't sit on our hands, right?
Yes.
And nothing happened and nothing got merged, that we didn't iterate.
All of the groundwork has been laid to provide the screen to give them access to this.
So let's see how this goes. So this is fine. Geo object storage, enable replication uploads and artifacts. And I actually need to look at this.
This is taking the flag off. This is taking the feature flag off. So either we need to do this now and release it as 12.4, or we do it in 12.5 with the documentation.
So I have a question. The documentation is being written right now, right?
Yes.
Do we think this documentation will be done by next Friday?
Let me quickly look at a calendar, because the person who needs to review this documentation is Gabriel, and he is back not next Friday.
He's on vacation for 2 weeks.
Oh, no, sorry. He's back on Monday. Sorry. My arrow button wasn't behaving. So if Valeri gets the documentation finished by early next week, then Gabriel will review it and we can release it. And to enable the flag, I can't imagine that that's going to take longer than a day of actually just doing. So, okay, let me just make a note of that here about the object storage. I'm just taking notes in the...
Yeah, I think what I will do here is I will also make a note in the issue saying, we can do this once copy is reviewed by product and merged. This is a prerequisite for releasing it in 12.4. Okay. Yeah, but I am quite. I think, you know, if we can accelerate the documentation a tiny bit, then I don't think. Like I would say, I would like this to be done by Friday, but I think it should be possible if we prioritize it correctly, because the documentation is written, right? And if if Gabriel comes back, I think we should just say, hey, can you please have a look at this so we can get it in? Because then it's actually out, and I think that would be a major achievement.
Okay, let me quickly have a look at what Valeri's looking at.
I think he has done that.
He says he's wrapping his head around that item, and that was on Tuesday. So I'll just ping him and ask how he's getting on with that.
The documentation.
Yeah.
I think Mike has reviewed it, and I think it's been passed on to Evan.
Oh wow! Okay, sorry, this all happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Go off for one. That's the one challenge of being away on the Thursdays. Is all the stuff happens that I haven't caught up on yet by the time this meeting happens.
So I think this is looking pretty
Okay.
good from my perspective.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, but I think for our purposes, what I would say is, let me actually put this up here, just to like keep this in mind as the next thing, so that we.
Why don't we? Yeah, sorry, that's the right column. Sorry, I thought that was still in the scheduling column, but you're right. It's at the top of ready for dev, so that's good. Okay.
Yeah, because this is really something, if we can make it by Friday, I think that would be really nice. Also for closure in a way.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last thing we didn't talk about is explicitly set node name instead of relying on backward compatible logic, which is, I think, the other documentation change that's
Zach's looking at. Yeah.
Yes. Is this actually already in development?
Yes, he started getting all his systems set up yesterday and this morning. Well, not yesterday and this morning, yesterday. So he is actually working on this. Why?
I'm just seeing that somehow my browser stored this response, which I now need to understand. I think this is moot.
I know what in the last scheduling call, I asked if we could please update the documentation so it was very specific, so that Zach would be able to pick it up. But however, he's already chatting with Mike. I think it will be fine. Yeah.
I'll just ping him and say, hey, Zach, is this already?
Yes, because then he'll pull it over to the right column. Good one.
We are already working on it. Could you please move it to workflow in dev? I'm changing the label. Thanks so much.
Since that is the bottom of the ready for development column, can we quickly bounce to the Geo discussion page before we talk about the next stuff to be scheduled in?
Sorry.
The reason I'd like to do this is because I think if we can summarize where we are at the moment, we can look at what needs to come in either to wrap up certain things or then looking forward to the next project.
So
I mean this document here.
The future of replication.
I mean this document here.
Are you taking notes?
Yeah, so what I'd like to quickly do is just to, if we can, I want to be able to paint a picture about this is where we are right now, and this is why we're going to schedule in these things and then bounce over to the Geo on GitLab.com project, or what else we need to be doing next. So, because it feels like we're actually really close to finishing a whole bunch of things.
I know, which is great,
so
actually.
That's awesome. So I wanted to say, so how many issues are we away from completing the FDW changes?
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's the name of that epic?
I'll just add it in here.
Okay, 4 issues away.
but they are actually, oops, slow. So I need to do a little bit more work on those. 1 second. Because these two here, I think this one here it has a lot of discussion on it. And I think it doesn't, I think this may not be something we actually need to schedule immediately to close this first iteration. So I'll just need to revisit that. And then Geo for zero downtime upgrades. So Tone added this on our documentation method. Okay, so this may be a documentation only change of actually saying specifically add the rake task to update foreign data wrapper tables to the documentation for zero downtime upgrades. I'll follow up with Tone here because that may be very easy to do. And then, yeah, those two things here are, yeah, this one is in the, this is the bug that we discussed. And I think this year, that was a bug observed, I think, in when upgrading. So I think there the question is, will this happen again with our new instructions? Actually, let me make a note. Let's revisit this after the new upgrade demo schedule in, because that may actually be moot. Okay, so that's easy.
So the simplify upgrades epic?
So the simplify upgrade epic, go to build.
Right, the reason I'm using the formatting I am in here is so that I can paste it straight into Slack.
So the improved upgrade documentation actually the only two, like this is like two really minor tickets here. And the big one is the actual HA upgrade documentation. So the big merge request that still needs to be revisited. But I think these are pretty quick to finish.
That's the epic about the documentation. That's not about
no.
Upgrade.
But this is the documentation epic, which we should be able to close out after a lot of work.
This is specifically about the documentation. There's other stuff
Yes.
about the upgrade. Yeah. But
Yeah. And I think we will not. I think what we have to decide is, I'm happy to leave this large epic open because there's potentially more work to do. But there are these two. Oh, this is all new.
Oh, I love this view.
Yes. So here the Geo Upgrade Demos is sort of the mini epic of all of the upgrade demos. And then
I'm so happy with this view. This is so nice to be able to see everything in one go.
yeah, and then these are all of the issues in here that have to do with the documentation changes, and these are the things that have to do with more robust foreign data wrapper tables. And then test no downtime upgrades, HA upgrades, including Geo. I think this is work that is being done by Jenny.
So then it seems that what we need to do now is decide how much of this epic we want to do now. Like, are we going to pick up the next one now, or
the next? So I would argue the following: we should just close out the improved Geo Upgrade documentation, right? And the main obstacle here is the actual like HA upgrade documentation. I'm not sure we will be able to do this in 12.4, just because of the like review intensity, right? But that's okay. But I think this here should be closed off as a first iteration. Say like, we have the documentation, we've thought about it a lot. Just make sure that we find sort of a good point at which this is done, and then we can think about the next thing. So I'm happy with this.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
For the foreign data table updates, it's kind of the same thing. So this requires maybe a little bit of follow-up from me, specifically about those two items here, if they actually need to happen or not, right? But I would also like to just close out this sort of mini epic and be done with it, because then it's actually done, right? And that's that. These things here, the testing, I have not much visibility. I know this is that is Jenny's work. This is for sure not going to finish in 12.4, right? And I'm also not really sure what the plan is, but all of these issues here seem pretty big, just looking at it.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of work hidden in here that we need to do. So I don't know. And then finally, the upgrade demos. So this is maybe sort of a little bit special, because I use this more as grouping demos, and we will have to do one per month, I think, for the foreseeable futures, just because new versions are being released, and I would I would like us to do this on a regular basis.
So maybe that actually needs to come out of this epic and be more of a business as usual type of epic.
That's fine. So we can close that.
Or maybe not close it, but just move it out somewhere away from this.
That's okay. I put it in here because it's
related. Yeah,
it's related. But I think the summary is we're really close to closing this one. I think we're pretty close to closing that one here. Essentially, either by deciding to do some things very quickly, or by just deciding to not do some things, which is also fine, right? The testing here, I think that's really far off. My impression, right? And the question is, do we want to continue doing this? And then these three like issues here. This is the one idea from Tone we talked about that is scheduled. That's a potential improvement.
Does that have to go into either of those other epics, or does it just live there?
I think it lives there for now, because it's not a documentation improvement, and it is not to do with making foreign data table updates better. So it's really its own thing. And those two things here, we can definitely, I think, postpone or spin them out, right? And say like, hey, let's create a new epic for those. This is nice.
Okay, can you just have a brief pause? I just want to get this in a, Tony and I are both editing this together, so I just want to make sure that we're capturing all of this. So on the sorry, Fabian, would you mind opening the epic itself that lists the sub-epics as well?
Yep.
So the sub-epics are Geo Upgrade Demo, at the moment are Geo Upgrade Demos. And the second epic is Improved Geo Upgrade Documentation. Then the third one is more robust foreign data tables. Okay, and the next one is the test no downtime. HA upgrades. And for this one here, we need to figure out where we are with this work, what needs to be done. Systems we need to provide to any, and if this should be okay. I think that's a great summary of where we are at the moment.
Yeah. And I would actually say that just if we look at this from sort of top to bottom in terms of scheduling where we are, this one here is in development right now. That's what Torn is doing. This one here is scheduled already, as in it's ready for development. And this one here, I think, is in scheduling. So I think these things will happen over the next couple of weeks. So I think this is, I'm not concerned about sort of, let's say, closing out the upgrade demos, right? And it's arguable that it may need to go into a different epic as well. So I think, and also, I don't know, I think it's nice to capture this work here in issues because then we can look at it, right?
Yeah, no, I like that as well.
Okay. Next thing is improve Geo Upgrade documentation. So if we just look at this here is in review, and I think there's a cross dependency from this one to the upgrade demos because we need to test this. And then I also think that this has a lot of potential customer impact, right? So there's probably another round of reviews, maybe letting Stan or Camille look at this as well, right? So this may take a little while longer, but it is certainly on the way, and I want this to be really robust, right? Let's look at this one, add node updating primary variable calls for data variable. Excuse me. Add node updating primary will cause foreign data wrapper to go out of date. Actually, I see a problem. Needs wait. So this here is in scheduling. So this is a documentation upgrade, documentation change. So if we look at the build board, I have actually not put this in sort of Geo in the sort of the next stage here. So let me just find this. Suck. Okay. And then this one here, add section to the R documentation describing upgrade impact on secondary. I think this is also a documentation only change that essentially says, when you upgrade, what is the potential impact on a secondary? And that's a documentation change. This is weighted and also in scheduling, but I would say, if we want to just close out these three things, we should probably also just accelerate that a little bit to get it sort of done.
Well, this is where I think this is the discussion we need to now have for the rest of the meeting is, do we want to get, I think the right thing to do is, we're so close to finishing these epics, is just to schedule the stuff that's missing.
Exactly. I actually agree. So let me pull this one over. Because I have them in my backlog here.
Yeah, so I think that it is more important to finish stuff that's in progress than to start new things. And it seems like we're so close, we should just pull these pieces in.
Correct. No. not sure why this is not yet. I really wish this was using WebSockets, so the changes would be immediate and I wouldn't need to actually reload everything all the time. Where I am confused.
Which one are you? I'm struggling to see which one you're dragging around.
Well, I'm struggling to find what I just dragged around because I don't see it anymore.
What was the name of the thing you were looking at?
It was the DR impact documentation.
The DR impact documentation.
So
you mean the?
I mean this one here.
Oh, you mean that one?
So I will do it in the issue itself.
Yeah.
So this is in Group Geo Workflow Scheduling,
but
and then Geo Active. Okay, that should have worked. I am very confused. Am I doing something?
Go back to it. Add. Where is it?
Add section to DR. So this is.
It's at the bottom. It's add second last on the open column on the build board.
Ah, great. Super.
Sorry for the confusion, Fabian. I added the documentation label, and because of that, it did remove the GeoActive label.
Oh, okay. No problem. All right, so that's good. So what we have now is if I, all of those three here are in the GeoActive column and are sort of ready for pickup, right? As in our sort of holding tank here.
So in the open column.
Yes.
Just go back to that list again. It's the upgrade.
It's
create upgrade documentation.
No, that's in review already.
Yeah,
this one here is in the open column and this one as well.
Add note and add section. Okay, yeah, great.
I will, let's say, optimistically also give this a milestone, just so that I will probably change this on like in the middle of next week, but now that it's active.
Okay, so I think that in the discussion doc now we have a good summary of where we are for the upgrade process.
Mm-hmm. Do we, and that's my last question.
Yeah.
This here, resolve programmatically for table refresh and Geo for zero downtime upgrades. I think these are, with this one here, I'm not 100% sure if we will actually do this, right? So I think this requires just follow up from me to say like, what are we doing? We want to finish this one here. This is an outstanding issue. What will happen, right? And the same with this one. So I may just go through this and this basically say like, hey, you know, what is the next step? Can we either delay this, close it, but we want to finish this item here.
Okay, so I just want to put a summary in that section about the foreign data tables that we need to come to a conclusion about both of those, or is it just because the second one doesn't have much discussion on it all. It's just it's the first, the one resolve foreign.
This one here, yeah, there's a lot of discussion. This one here needs to essentially have a decision what actually will be done.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this one here, the Geo for zero downtime upgrades. I actually think
and that's the second one.
Tone, what do you think? Is this something that we can just add as part of the sort of the updated multi-node instructions?
Second, I'm just reading what the issue was again, or the proposal was. Yeah, what's the current proposal? I'm not fully understanding this.
I think the proposal here, if I understand this correctly, is that we just add basically say refresh the foreign data wrapper tables in the rake command within those instructions. But I'm not really
there's a documentation change. So after you have done the post deployment migrations on the primary, do refresh of RDW on the secondary nodes.
Yes.
Okay, and your question was?
My question was, is this something that we can essentially just do right now? So I can.
I think so, yeah.
Right, because then I move this from planning into our open column, because then we can also just flush this one out.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Super. Because then this one here is that's also done. Yeah, so this looks good as well, I think. Cool. So I think what we're essentially saying is we are so close to finishing almost all the work that we intended to do in this iteration for simplifying Geo Upgrade, the Geo Upgrade process. So before starting something new, let's just flush all of that stuff out, close it down, and then move on.
I think that that's the right thing. Like as I read over what I've written here, or what we have written here in the scheduling call summary, there are essentially three things that we are close to finishing: the object storage, simplifying the upgrade process, and the replication of design uploads, with the exception of the verification for that. And I think that the message at the end of this scheduling call needs to be, these are three epics that we want to draw a line under and complete. And then the next two things that we need to pick up are around how we think about this replication and verification in terms of a framework, making it easier to add more data types. So it's almost like the base that we want to work from when adding more data types. And I want to just close the thought there. And the second thing is around the geo on GitLab.com. So the reason why I think that those two things become related is because it sounds like it sounds like it's difficult to add more data types because of certain things that are missing, and that some of the queries land up being slower because of the way that the system is working at the moment. But if we look at how to build this with a framework, we might find a different way of speeding up those queries because we might not need them anymore. And that's going to impact when we're running this on GitLab.com because of the speed. That was the full thought.
Okay. So because I think for my and this is great because we're doing a lot of work that I needed to do today anyways.
Yeah.
So my thought process is that there is one other thing that we need to start planning, right? Which is to do with the improvements to promotion, demotion, and failover. Because if we are starting to enable geo on .com, that will only be useful if we actually have a good understanding of how we can fail over successfully. And so
I partially agree with that, because I think that the first reason for having this on GitLab.com is for the data backups, is for having all of the data available in a second location.
I think that's true.
And I think that the second piece from that becomes being able to fail over. So
yes.
I don't disagree with you that we need to get ahead of the promotion and demotion stuff, but I don't think it is
it's not a blocker, right? Yeah. But I think so my thought is that at least I don't have a good understanding of the current state of all of those things and what the potential improvements are. And what I've learned also working with Tone on the simplification of the upgrade process is that there is probably a significant amount of work to be done in discovery, right? And in, you know, how this like is being implemented, and I may need to talk to customers and customer success, and just to paint a picture, which is, I think, so that doesn't really require any implementation work, but it requires us, I think, picking up the planning of this, right? With sort of in mind that we are focusing on actual implementation of Geo for DR purposes on .com, right? Then I think I now understand a little bit better why the sort of a new framework of replicating data and verifying data may be needed in order to enable this for performance purposes. But I think then, let's say we get the geo.com stuff done, and we get it done sort of very quickly. If we are then already in a position where we know what sort of the next steps are, you know, to improve DR and the failover, right? We have a better understanding of that. I think we can sort of transition into that. And I think
that's right. I think if the discovery and the planning is happening at the same time as all of the rollout stuff is going on, yes. I think that's perfect. And I also think that the rolling out to GitLab.com also gives you time to do that, because I think that from a product perspective, we have a pretty good understanding of what we are going to, of how we need to get this thing onto GitLab.com. I mean, obviously with infrastructure's help, but I think that from a product perspective, there's not going to be as much, I'm not saying we're not going to need you for those projects, but I think we will need you less than the promotion, demotion, and failover. So I think that it then gives you some more brain space to get ahead of that project while we continue on getting it out for GitLab.com.
I will partially agree. I'm very useful.
You are very useful, and I'm very glad that you're with us.
No, I know. It's I agree though. I think, like, to be perfectly frank, I'm obviously a little bit less helpful when it comes to those things because I can't do anything, right? I think my use is more in the making sure that I'm not scheduling 15 other things that are distracting, so that we can focus on this, right? And prioritize it appropriately. Yeah. Sorry. This is, by the way, it's a big pet peeve of mine. When I filter the list of epics and then I go to the roadmap, all my filters are gone.
Yeah.
So let me quickly just pull up the Geo roadmap.
Okay. So I think we've got a good, I think this is a good place for us to be in. I mean, it's always a good place for us to be in, but I like the fact that we're at the end of 3 epics. And we didn't actually have more than that in progress. I mean, I know we've had other smaller pieces, you know, we've been helping customers with certain problems, and there's always going to be stuff that is around the epics, but we've had 3 areas of focus and we're wrapping up on all of them.
Actually, we have 4.
What's the 4th one?
Look at this.
That's the 4th one. Automatically choose the Geo node.
Yes, because this
so
will...
What's the final with that?
So the final is that I think... so I will actually probably rewrite this a little bit because I'm doing research on the web UI, you know, future, let's say. But I think with this item here, the customizable Git HTTP clone root URL, and the already existing documentation for how to use a geo-aware DNS service. I think this can sort of be closed, and I'll rephrase it a little bit, because I think we are then in a state where we can say there is a configuration option that actually allows us to choose the best geo node for Git operations. And I think this is what I wanted to achieve. So I need a little bit more cleanup, but I think this is, you know, the fully transparent Git configuration. This is kind of done. And the improved web UI user experience here is something in the future, right? So let's say like this is like I just need to sort this a little bit more, but I think one of the like big things that we wanted to achieve here, which is being able to having fully transparent Git configuration, as in one Git URL for everyone independent of location, that's done. And I think that should be recognized, which is good.
Okay, so Okay.
Yeah. So, and then if I look at my roadmap, just to summarize this, essentially what this means for 12.5 is we are going to focus on enabling Geo for disaster recovery.com. There's more concrete work to be done about like the architecture rollout and the rolling out to staging, but that will be the main focus. Then we will also, and I think this requires the creation of a new epic, the sort of work on a verification and replication framework, right, in support of the disaster recovery bits. And then lastly, the promotion, demotion, and failover, the planning for that. What this means is we will not be doing any work on simplifying the installation of Geo at the moment, which I think also makes sense because that's larger than Geo. We will also not actually implement any new data types in 12.5. So we're postponing, for example, GitLab pages. We're also not going to work specifically on upload verification, right? That's also going to be postponed. So we're sort of saying, let's take a step back and do some sort of groundwork for the verification and replication and just make sure that that is performant and easier to do, because at the moment it's not. Is that sort of fair?
That sounds good. I'm just writing down everything that you said there. Okay, so what I've said there, if my summary is correct, for 12.5, we're going to focus on enabling Geo for GitLab.com, doing staging first, and planning the work for promotion, demotion, and failover. We're not going to implement any new data types right now, and we'll concentrate on determining the right approach for the long-term direction for replication and verification.
Yep. I think that's the crystallized plan.
So there is only 1 week left of 12.4. And I'm some of those items about the upgrade process might still be in progress. So I think that the opening statement to this just needs to be, we're going to close out the number of epics.
Yeah, so I think actually, like, because we're not the, let's say, most milestone driven, like the process is more continuous, right? So I think actually what we're saying is, before doing any of this, we are going to close out these three epics, right? And that is the focus. So we will like just make sure we just have closure on those. Once that happens, which will very likely happen in 12.5, right? And forward, we are going to, in full force, focus on those 3 things.
There's actually 4 things, but yes. So first, we're going to close out the 4 epics, which are automatically choose the best node, object storage, simplify the upgrade process, and replication of design uploads.
Yes.
Why do you indent? Silly thing. Why? Because that's not what I want. I mean, does that make sense?
To me, it doesn't make sense. And, it sounds like more than it actually is, I think, because we're so close. But I think it also is really good because we can then say, as a team, we've actually closed out these really large pieces of work. Honestly, like, I think this view here makes me, if I go to simplify Geo upgrade process, the new trees for epics makes me so happy. Because
I'm actually going to message the plan team, and like if I could do the equivalent of buying in donuts, it would be brilliant. Like I'm so happy with this.
Yeah, I think one additional improvements that I would like to actually have here is sort of the summed up weight of all the sub epics. I think that would be the cumulative weight of all of this work.
Well, even just the number of issues that are included, like even saying, we've got 6 issues and 3 of them are completed, because I know everyone uses weight in their own special way, but.
Yeah, but we have 4 epics and 33 issues in total, right? So yeah. I think it is, you did a really excellent job at following through all of this, and super pleased.
Cool. Okay, we're 10 minutes over. So I've written, well, we have all together written in the scheduling call summary, everything. Can I please ask you to just have one final read of that and check that you're happy? And then when I upload this video later on, I will just dump the summary into the Slack channel.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would probably write is like a 3-sentence summary, you know, that essentially says we are going to finish those 4 things first, and then we are going to like tackle those 3 things next, right? That is essentially the plan. So that, and then we have lots of details.
Yeah. Okay. Well, feel free to make any edits you want to as soon as the recording is converted, which usually takes forever because it's a long one. I'll upload it and put this in the chat.
Awesome.
It's been awesome. I'm feeling very happy. This is wonderful.
I feel the same because the last 3 days, I obviously had no time to write down anything, but I had a little bit of sort of downtime to think. And sometimes, at least, I get this sort of clogged head feeling where I need to hold a lot of this information and thought process in my head, and then having the opportunity today to talk through this and crystallize it and get alignment is really...
This is great.
Really fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for everybody who followed us for 60 minutes or more on this.
There will
only
be
those
questions
who actually
later.
make it to the end will hear this praise. So.
Alrighty.
All right. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.